All right, I'm just going to get started. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Justin, and today's long title is Expanding the Frame, but basically we'll just stop there. But we're talking about visual storytelling and a little bit about social media, a tiny bit about AI, and the future of where we're going with this. So, this was me as a child, always adventurous in my mind, and I had dreams, big dreams. At first, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I was obsessed with space. I was captivated by the allure of the cosmos and what was out there beyond our existence. Then the next year came, and I changed my mind completely, and I wanted to be an archaeologist, something totally different. So from the stars to the sands, my curiosity knew no bounds, and so I was exploring every nook and cranny in my house, and also my great-grandmother's house and the farms of North Carolina. So, naturally, my mind stayed awake late at night, and this is where I discovered my new obsession. Star Trek wasn't just a late-night TV show for me. It was a vision of a future where knowledge and exploration were the final frontiers. And it instilled in me a sense of wonder and a thirst for understanding the mysteries of what we don't know in the universe. I harkened back to all those movies like the Star Trek, and then came on the screen Indiana Jones. And I thought about my archaeology dreams. Just like him, I was captivated by the thrill of discovery. The hat, the whip, the sense of adventure. These were more than just cinematic elements. They symbolized this quest for knowledge and curiosity about the world. So as I started thinking about my career choices, I realized that being an astronaut was probably not going to happen. So as life unfolded, my career took unexpected turns. I became a professional singer. That turned into being a music director, and then I found myself in the classroom teaching, and then eventually to producing at the stage level. Each of these steps was a stepping stone of an experience. As I pondered my journey, I realized that kind of in a way, I did fulfill my childhood dreams by becoming a modern day archaeologist and astronaut through storytelling and exploration. Through filmmaking and telling stories of others through social media, directing documentaries, directing music videos, and interviews. In my work, I unearth stories and legacies, much like an archaeologist sifts through the sands of time. I delve into the digital strata to discover narratives that have shaped our world. And when I think of storytelling, and when we all think of storytelling, we tend to always go back to some of the first storytellers who told their stories in caves. So through languages of their own knowing, and ones that we're still to this day trying to decipher. So as I was making this presentation this week, I did a lot of thinking about language and where we go with it. So as I look back on all the things that I traveled through my career, I realized that all of those had a kind of a language of their own. So we have languages of music, one of the stage and the screen, one of the academic world, and then most recently, one of media. That got me thinking about these social media platforms that we, both in creation and consumption, use and all seem to have their own culture and unique language. The truth is, us human beings can't shake this desire to tell the universe we are here. So from hieroglyphics of the ancient Egypt to prehistoric cave paintings, humanity has always sought to leave their mark. So if you think selfies are new, take a look at this image. This is from 1900, where a woman points her Kodak box brown camera at her bedroom mirror to record an image of herself in history. And this camera was actually invented in 1790. So today, our hieroglyphics are emojis hashtags, digital art. Each of these is a pixel in the vast canvas in our collective story of human beings. So let's go back to this image that I've displayed a couple of times, and you may recognize it. It's one of the most recognizable images. It's called the Cueva de las Manos, or the Cave of Hands. Anybody know about it? So this is Argentina. It's a very ancient cave where they found many, many hands that were left there for thousands of years. This particular one is from an Instagram account that I follow called Ancient Archives, because I have really this kind of obsession with cave paintings and their connection to our current day. Here we find beautiful images and videos, along with storytelling angle and the captions. So let's take this image of the hands and go through each of the platforms as a comparison. So if we look at Instagram, and it changes over time, we're looking at these images, we're looking at video, but we're also looking at the story that's happening in the captions. It wasn't always like this. They used to be shorter, but now we want longer captions because it turns out people want more story. So as most languages do, they evolve. In Instagram, we're going to see terms like reels, stickers, hashtags, some emojis, but generally pretty standard and grammatically readable language. So here's some other Instagram posts. Another one from Ancient Archives of another famous cave painting. And then a couple from National Geographic, which at least at one time was the most followed platform in the world. So now we're going to go over to Facebook. Here's a couple of posts from there. It's pretty similar to Instagram, but this has more similarities to like a newspaper blog. So you'll find the value here is on comments, likes, and shares with your friends, with your friend network. And then we add the ability to share external links that lead to other sources, such as a blog that you've created or a news article. So it can be informational in this way, or it could just be as simple as sharing a photo album with your family reunion or a moment from an event. So now let's take it one of the newer ones, TikTok. And this is by far one of the more popular ones nowadays. So how would you talk about the cave here? By getting in front of the camera and in front of the content and educating your audience and sharing what you've learned or experienced, like this girl is here. So you don't actually have to have had experienced that in person. You can do the research yourself and then share what you learned with the world. But of course you could go there, have your own experience, and give us a tour of your findings. Now here's another one we kind of all forget about, Pinterest. And that's a shame because Pinterest is highly visual. It's basically all visual. So this platform is all about inspiring creativity. So you could create a mood board for your career goals, a project that you're working on, or perhaps a trip to the Cueva Caves. Here we're making pins, we're making boards, and we're sharing ideas. And you might even make a post of how to create your own cave of painted hands. So now let's talk just for a second about our long lost child, Twitter/X, who's going through some changes. It still has a place in the world from a long history, and we've used it extensively at this conference. So here we're sending short, snappy things of a moment in time. We're using hashtags to group our thoughts and ideas. We're using animated GIFs to respond to people with emotions, memes, reposting, retweeting, using links and videos and preview cards. So changes in recent months with this have expanded these functions depending on your level of use. But the language here has its origins from text messaging. So because of the character limit, you'll see a lot of LOLs and OMGs because we were forced to use less characters. So here's LinkedIn, and this is interesting. I was kind of curious to see if I'd find anything. But it's interesting, these two particular posts, these are business professionals using this same image of the cave to remind us that we are human and that we are dealing with human in our professional lives. And we're using this to inspire teamwork, our methodology, or even a skill that goes back to our human foundations. So what I decided to do is do a little research project, and I asked about a dozen content creators to answer some questions about their social media use. So these are the ones that agreed to have their photo shared, and there are more than this. So from a jumble of titles that they self-identified of, these are who we're talking about as a general title of who they are. So you've got influencers, actors, directors, songwriters, development coach, content creator, those kinds of things. So just to give you an idea of what kind of people we were dealing with, I asked them, how do you identify? Most of them identified as a video creator, followed by influencers, content strategists, coaches, and artists. And then when I asked them about the content reach that they're having, I asked them how they expected to reach and then what the actual outcome was. Generally, they usually reach more people than they intended to. And that's in recent months. The largest amount of people that one of my participants reached was over 17 million. So I asked them questions, why do you think that was that you reached these high numbers? So this is their feedback. Posts that were authentic, engaging, and relatable. Posts that had being shared by an influencer, and by influencer, everybody in this room is an influencer. That means, what circle of influence did you have? So when someone else shared it to their network, they had a bigger reach. Anything that might have been controversial or ignited a subject matter. Also, visual. All of these things they identified as being successful to reach people. So when we're talking about these visual things, what are we talking about? Here's an Instagram example. So when you do overlays that make things interactive, you can add these things called stickers, okay? So you can do a poll, you can do a quiz, you can add music to it, you can get an idea of how your audience is feeling. So here's an example of a poll, right? How much do you love pizza? And you can drag the bar over and then see how your followers rank. And then you can use that to respond to them. Here's an example of a quiz. What is your biggest fear? Spiders, karaoke, clowns? So you can use that quiz to interact with your fandom. I'm only going to do one slide about AI, and I'm so glad I made that decision because Michelle covered it beautifully. But I did ask them about AI a little bit and what their thoughts were on it. Surprisingly, they're not really too concerned about it or thinking much about it right now. So they said things like, yeah, it's complex, but I think there's some opportunity there. I don't really consider the ethical implications. And I think the future is going to make AI more personalized and interactive for us. So now let's talk about immersive content and what do we mean by that? So about a year ago, I ditched my car and I decided to get a motorcycle. So this is me taking the MSF course, the motorcycle safety course, and this is my second time taking and I actually passed. It was difficult. But this was my first time in my adult life that I had kind of a major shift in my perception of how I was immersed when I was driving on the roads. So anybody else drive a motorcycle? Okay, so good, you're in for a treat. So everybody knows what this view is, right? You're behind a steering wheel and you have your mirror, and you have your mirror here. You're basically like this, right? We're all kind of used to how we're in our car. But we're in this enclosed box. We're kind of cut off from the world. The biggest shift that I saw is when you're on the road in a car, your major focus points are right in front of you and who's coming there, and maybe some behind you. The biggest thing I noticed is that when I'm on a bike, that completely changed to being always aware of my 360-degree environment. So as I'm driving for safety purposes, I have to constantly be aware of everything around me, mostly because I know people don't see me. So I'm constantly checking and being aware. So that also means I don't have a DVD playing, I don't have music on, I'm not putting my makeup on, I am just driving. So that was an interesting perception change for me. So how does this equate to immersion? We're creating immersive experiences now, more than we have before. This is a video I made with my husband. There was an enchanted forest in the middle of the woods with lighting and magical moments that were specifically designed for people to take their phones and create immersive experiences with them. And this is another one where I went with my best friend down the West Coast on the Amtrak train, and we're able to take in the views and inspire others to take that journey with me. We're also starting to see that organizations and companies are taking this on by providing an actual experience to recreate these stories. These are candlelight concerts, right? So you want to go there not necessarily for the music, but for the vibes, okay? Here's another one, very similar, an enchanted night walk. So as people are starting to see these gain popularity, they want people to come and enjoy their events and then post about them. And in case you want to know, Bubble World is now open in LA. So there's another example. Or La, yes. So when we look at immersive experiences, museums can also copy this model by creating those for your children or for your students to come and experience those. Or you can use Minecraft and recreate the Cave of Hands yourself. So when we're talking about immersive experience, when I asked my participants, they believe it's very important. It creates authentic, real-world visuals. It's essential for storytelling. They're seeing more spaces designed for immersive experiences and regularly featuring these appealing locations for their social media. So, going back to that car analogy, from our laptops and our phones, we've gone from scrolling up and down to two-dimensional images to creating 360-degree environment changes. So what does that say for the future? Here are some top technology trends of 2023 as published by McKinsey & Company. This is where we think we're going with technology. And what does that mean? Do we fear technology? This is what people in Australia experienced on March 1st, 1975, when color television came on for the first time. So the viewers in real time got to see their televisions transition to color. Yeah, if they had a color television. So when we're looking in the past at what really happened in those caves, or if we're looking to the future of what Star Trek really was, keep in mind the stories that you're telling to keep looking up. I'm going to close with this little post that I made around the pandemic time. The other night, after a long day, I got a ride home from an Uber driver named Leonard. A couple of minutes into the ride, he said, "This ride includes a close-up look at the moon, if you want." I was intrigued. "What do you mean?" He reached into his passenger seat and held up some professional, high-power binoculars. "With these," he exclaimed, letting out a childlike laughter of excitement, which I joined in on. I couldn't wait. So when we stopped at my house, he threw the car in park, exclaimed, "Okay, let's look at the moon." We both got out. He handed me the binoculars and taught me how to use them, being sure to point out how cool it was to see the craters and the shadows so close up. I asked him to take my photo so I could tell this story, and Leonard made my long day end on a beautiful note and reminded me to look up at the beauty that exists around all of us. Thank you. I don't think